In the last few parts, we prepared the entity classes for the database, created new data access objects, otherwise known as DAOs, and functionality in the repository, and finally, we also implemented the FutureListWeatherViewModel, which is right now on the screen in Android Studio. All of this means that we are now ready to put everything together in a good-looking user interface. In this tutorial, you are going to learn how to work with a recycler view in an MVVM application. And it won't be just any old recycler view though, where you have to write a lot of boilerplate code. No, you will learn how to use arguably the best Android library for recycler views, and that is Groupie. Hello, welcome to RecyclerView. So this is how the UI will look like after the end of this part of this tutorial series. It's already the 13th part, so that's cool. We will have a list of all the future weather entries, and later on in this series we will also build the detail of each future weather entry. When you click on it in the list, it's going to open up in a detailed view, but that's not going to be part of this tutorial, so definitely stay tuned for the detail of the weather and subscribe if you don't want to miss that part. Before we write any Kotlin code for the fragment, it's not a bad idea to create the layout first. So let's open up our app, then res, layout, and we want to edit FutureListWeatherFragment.xml. So let's open that up, and I'm just going to copy and paste all of the layout code in here, and you can get it from the link in the video description, which is going to take you to RecyclerView.com. The layout is really simple. We have, just like in the current weather fragment, we have a group, which is group loading, which groups together the progress bar, the circular indefinite progress bar, and also the text view which is below it, which says loading. So whenever we are loading, this group will be visible, and as soon as the data is loaded already, this group will be disabled, so it will be invisible, and therefore the user will not see the progress indicator when the data is already present, and the data will be represented and displayed in a recycler view. So here it is, and we will be using the Groupie library in order to put this recycler view to use without any kind of a boilerplate code. Alright, so once we have the layout done, we can go over to the Kotlin code. So let's open up Java, our first package, UI, weather, future, list, and future list weather fragment. Let's start off from the top. We are going to inherit from scoped fragment. So this is because we want to be using the coroutines, and coroutines need to have a scope in order that we aren't going to get any null pointer exceptions when the coroutine finishes only after the fragment has already been destroyed. Scope fragment was created somewhere around the time when we were creating the current weather fragment. So if you want to refresh your memories of scope fragment, just go to that part and watch it. We can delete this companion object because we are not going to be using that, but instead we are going to be using our dependency injection framework Kotlin. So we also need to make this future list weather fragment to be Kotlin aware. By doing this, we can override Kotlin, and also we can create private val viewModel factory, which will be of type FutureListWeatherViewModel factory, and we are going to inject it over here, or actually retrieve it, not really inject it, by instance. This is possible because of Kotlin, and we have bound this FutureListWeatherViewModel factory in the last part of this tutorial. It's right over here at the last line of our forecast application, right over here. Then we already have the view model over here, so we are going to use it, and it's initialized in the onActivity created right on this line, but we need to change how it is retrieved from viewModel providers quite a bit. That's because we need to pass the viewModel factory to this auth function of viewModel providers. So now our viewModel will be created by the factory, so it will have all of the proper properties passed over to there. So it will have forecast repository and also the unit provider passed to its constructor when we create it with our factory, which we created in the previous part. Then let's create private fun bind UI, and this will be a coroutine. So let's type launch, and this coroutine will be launched on the coroutine scope, which is controlled by this scoped fragment class. So that's the proper coroutine scope on which we want to launch coroutines when we are inside fragments or activities. So we are going to launch it on the main dispatcher, because remember that you can only change the state of the UI when you are on the main thread, and main dispatcher makes sure that we are on the main thread. Now, what do we want to do first in bind UI? Well, we want to fetch future weather entries and also fetch weather location from our view model. So it's pretty simple. We just call asynchronous functions here. We await for their results, and we can handle the weather location UI even before we create the Groupie's implementation of the RecyclerView, because weather location is not in the RecyclerView. It's only displayed at the app bar, you know. So let's observe the weather location. The lifecycle owner will be this at FutureListWeatherViewModel, and the observer itself will be, or will obtain, location. And again, we first need to check if location is null, and if it is, we want to return from the observer, and otherwise we are going to update location and pass in the location.name to be displayed in the app bar. And the update location function will be really simple. So we just get the activity as app compile activity, we get the action bar and set its title to be the location. Now we are also going to observe future weather entries. Its observer will get weather entries, and as soon as the weather entries are not null, which means that they are loaded from the repository, we are going to immediately set the loading group's visibility to be gone, so it will be hidden from us. Also, if you take a look at this emulator and go to the Today tab, so today's weather, the date says today. In the 7 days forecast, it says next week down here. And when we go to the details, so for example, this one for January the 23rd, it says January the 23rd. How else? So in here, in the list weather fragment, we need to set this date to be to say next week. So we're going to create a simple function, update date to next week. It sets the subtitle of the support action bar to next week, and we are going to just simply call it from here. So update date to next week. And now, before we continue with writing the code in future list weather fragment, we first need to create future weather item, which will be the class which the Groupie library can use to display in the recycler view. Again, before we write the Kotlin code, we are going to create the layout first. So right click on layout, we want to create a new layout resource file, and its name will be item future weather. Again, you can copy the layout code from the link in the video description, which is going to take you to resocoder.com, and I am just going to walk you through it because, as you can see, it's quite long of a layout here. So as the root element, we have material card view. Card views are nice, so that's why I'm using them over here. We set the card corner radius to be 4 density independent pixels, and then inside that card view we have a constraint layout, which is our preferred layout because it's just so cool for Android. And we set its minimum height to be from the attributes, and that attribute is list preferred item height large. It's system specific or Android version specific, so that's why we are using that. You can also set your value in DPs here if you really want to have something fixed. And then our card contains a text view for the date, text view for the temperature, then it has text view for the condition, and finally image view for the condition icon, which will be populated with the glide library, just like we are doing in our current weather fragment. Once we have the layout done, we can create the Kotlin class, so future weather item under the list package. So new Kotlin class. And now we are going to get into the Groupie library, and I have a separate tutorial about Groupie, so definitely check it out. It goes really in depth. It even shows you how to set up a recycler view which displays a grid of items, not only a list of items. So really check it out if you want to learn more about Groupie, because in this tutorial I'm not going to explain everything as in depth as in that tutorial. The first thing, which is kind of obvious, is that every future weather item needs to contain a weather entry which it will represent in the UI. So we need to pass in val weather entry of type unit specific simple future weather entry. And also, since we are using the Groupie library and it has an item class, we need to subclass the item from com xray groupie kotlin android extensions.item. Now, every item class needs to override the bind function and also the get layout function. This get layout function is really simple. We are just going to return r.layout, and then our layout is item future weather. Groupie is amazing because you don't need to write your code for view holders. View holders are really just a bunch of boilerplate code, and Groupie saves you from writing them because you can access everything which is on the layout from its generic kind of view holder here. So all we need to do is that inside this bind function we will get the view holder which is passed to this function, and on it we will apply, which is a standard Kotlin function, and then we are going to change the text view conditions text to be equal to weather entry.condition text. But here comes a problem. We cannot actually access the text view condition. So why is that? You know how you can access your views from an activity or from a fragment just by calling their ID directly from the code when you are using Kotlin, and you don't need to use the find view by ID syntax, which is quite horrendous when you are using Java. Well, you can do the same with a view holder, because when we take a look at the view holder's implementation, so Control B, it is a layout container. But the thing with layout containers right now is that they are kind of experimental, so you cannot really call just an ID on a layout container and retrieve the view from it like that. In order to do that, we need to go to the build Gradle for the module app, and at the bottom or at the top even, we need to add something called Android extensions and set experimental to be true. And also, it probably wouldn't hurt if we updated every single library that is out of date, but I am not going to do it now because it would take quite a lot of time to recompile this project. So now let's just hit sync now. Alright, so it's all done. We can close the app build.gradle file. And now, as you can see immediately, we can import text view condition here. So let's hit Alt Tab and hit import. We want to import it from synthetic main item future weather text view condition here. So item future weather, make sure that you do not import current weather fragment, although that would work just fine, I think. It doesn't matter as long as the IDs are matching. And now we need to do similar things with the date and also the temperature and also the condition image. But because, for example, setting the date is not as simple as plugging the date right into the text view, we first need to format it somehow. It is better to place it into its own separate function. And that function will be a private fun, and it's going to be an extension function on the view holder, and it will be called update date. It's an extension function because now we can just call it like this, so just update date right from this apply block, because it applies everything here on a view holder. And here inside update date, we are going to get the datetime formatter, and we are going to get the format of localized date, and the format style is medium, and the medium format looks like this. So January the 21st 2019. If it was long, it would be like fully written that January, not just JAN, but January full name. And then we use this datetime formatter on the date inside our weather entry, and we format it with the datetime formatter, and the result is put into the text view date. Then we are going to do the same thing with update temperature and update condition image. So inside update temperature, we are using metric simple future weather entry. So let's import it first. And we set the unit abbreviation to be either degrees Celsius or degrees Fahrenheit, depending on whether or not we are using metric weather. And then we simply update the text view temperature here. And finally, update condition image uses the glide app, which is our own implementation of the glide library, which is created somewhere around internal glide and forecast app glide module right here. This creates our own glide app class. And we use this glide app class with the container view. The container view is the root view of the view holder in this case. And the this keyword refers to the view holder because this is an extension function. And then we simply load the proper image to the image condition icon image view. Now let's just call these two functions from the apply block inside the bind function. And now we can jump back to the FutureListWeather fragment. And all the way down we are going to create init RecyclerView function, which will receive a list of items of type FutureWeatherItem, which is just the item which we have just created for Groupie. And we are going to call this function from the observer of FutureWeather entries. So once the FutureWeather entries are loaded, let's call init RecyclerView and pass in the FutureWeatherItem list. But the thing is that we currently don't have the FutureWeatherItem list. We have only a list of unit-specific simple FutureWeather entries, and they are not the same as the items with which the Groupie library can work. So we need to have a way to convert our unit-specific simple FutureWeather entries into their items for the Groupie library. For that conversion, there are multiple ways to do that, but we are going to use an extension function on the list. So private fun and then list. And we want to extend list of unit specific simple FutureWeather entry. And the function will be called toFutureWeatherItems. And it will simply return a list of FutureWeather items. And there is nothing more simple than this conversion which we are about to write. Return this.map, and we want to map unit-specific simple FutureWeather entries to FutureWeather item. And as we are creating a new instance, we want to pass in the it implicit parameter, which is of type unit-specific simple FutureWeather entries. And map is a function which passes every single element of the list on which it is called on and returns a new list of whatever is returned from this map function. So now we can call init RecyclerView and pass in weather entries dot to FutureWeather items. And now all that's left to implement is this init RecyclerView function, in which we are first going to create the group adapter, which is a Groupie class with a generic parameter view holder, and on it we want to apply, oh, and I forgot two parentheses here because we want to instantiate a new object, and apply that we want to add all, and we want to add all items. Once the adapter holds all of our items, we can get the recycler view from the layout, and on it we want to apply that its layout manager should be linear layout manager, and inside it we are going to pass a context, which is this at FutureListWeather fragment dot context, and then also the RecyclerView's adapter will be simply our group adapter. And later on, whenever a list item is clicked, we are going to show the detail of the weather, but now we are just simply going to display a toast. We can register clicks for a list item by writing group adapter set on item click listener. It's gonna be passed an item and also a view. And for now, we're just going to show a toast here, and later on we are going to really show the future detail fragment. So definitely stay tuned for that and subscribe to this channel, and also hit the bell button if you don't want to miss that future part. For now, just display toast. So make text. Context is this at FutureListWeather fragment dot context. The text will simply say clicked. The length will be toast dot length short. And then we don't want to forget to show this toast. And now, if everything is correct, we can launch this app inside the emulator. And we are getting a strange error that inside the current weather fragment there is an unresolved reference is metric, so I'm quite surprised about this error. Why is it appearing here? Let's see. The view model inside current weather fragment, which we have implemented quite a while ago, is of type current weather view model. So if we go over to that current weather view model, oh, right, that's correct, because we are now using weather view model here as a superclass, and it doesn't have a boolean is metric, but rather is metric unit. So sorry about this error, I didn't notice it before when we changed the implementation of the view models in the previous part. So just simply call is metric unit, and now when we save that, the error is going to be gone, and now we can launch the app inside the emulator. Oh man, and we've again gotten another crash, and it's again because there are some mismatches between data types. So expected an integer, but it was 11.2, which is a double, or a float, add line 1, column something inside the total precipitation for the forecast day. So let's go to our data, then db entity, and we want to go over to the day, and here we again have ints where they should be doubles. So I think the safest bet is to change every single integer into a double. This is just happening because the Kotlin to or JSON to Kotlin class, whenever we got the data from the API, there was just a non-decimal number, but now it returns decimal number. So that's why we have the parse errors. Now, because we have changed the tables inside the database, because now we have a bunch of new classes or entities which are gonna be written over there to the database, we either need to change the version of the database. So inside the forecast database, bump up the version to be, for example, 2, and then also provide a database migration. But I'm not going to do that because providing database migrations, you can look it up yourself. It's not all that hard, but it's just not necessary for this simple app. And therefore, I'm going to go to our emulator and just delete the forecast MVVM. This is not the correct one, I think. I should delete the first one here because this is the prep, or actually the tutorial one, yeah. And now when we launch the app, and oh my freaking god, I was wondering here for minutes why the app is not working. And the sole reason why it's not yet working, because if we take a look at it now, it just keeps on loading and loading and loading, because it just doesn't call this group loading.visibility.gone. In fact, it doesn't call anything because we haven't, or I haven't, sorry about that, I haven't written bind UI inside the onActivity created. So right after we set up the view model, we also want to call bind UI. And now let's really for the last time run the app inside the emulator. And now we are in the Today tab. We can go to the 7 Days tab and it will load just fine, thankfully. So here is the list of all future weather entries for Castro City. That's the location where the Android emulator decided to be right now. And when we click on one entry, it says clicked inside the toast displayed down here. And yeah, the location still works, so we can change it to be something. Oh, all right, Los Angeles is cool. And also change the metric system to be imperial, or unit system, not metric system. So now when we go to today, it will be in Los Angeles and it's imperial. And also this will be to imperial and also for Los Angeles. So it's all working properly and fine. Alright, so thanks for bearing with me even through all of these errors, and definitely subscribe to this channel and also hit the bell button if you don't want to miss the next part in which we will start implementing the detail of the future weather. If this tutorial helped you to implement the recycler view with the Groupie library and also to just overall make a list UI, give this video a like and also share it. Leave a comment if you have anything to say, follow me on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and see you in the next video.